Hey, what's up, fight fans? Will here once again. It's been a long couple of weeks, a big 3-week break. We're about a week out from UFC 223. I've managed to get all the fights that I wanted to watch out the road and do a little bit of research and everything, and we're back. And we're back with an absolutely unbelievable card, an unbelievable main card, unbelievable couple of big fights at the top. And it started off with Tony Ferguson defending his UFC Interim Lightweight title against Khabib Nurmagomedov, and just one of the best fights, stylistic fights, I think there is and has been for a long time. It's just been so intriguing for so many years between these two, and I'm looking. I cannot believe how much I've actually looked into this fight, watched so many fights of these guys, and it's just trying to pick little bits out, because there's so many different opinions out there that I've seen on social media, and just different things that I've actually, I don't usually make an awful lot of notes, but this is a fight where I've went back and watched fights, I went back and watched fights again and made many notes. So just a precursor, I'm probably going to speak an awful lot and actually a very long time on that fight once I get to the main event of the night, because I'm so just intrigued in the fight. I'm just it's a great fight. So there will be timestamps like always on all the fights, but I'm just warning you now, this is probably, it wouldn't surprise me if I end up speaking close to 60 minutes on this fight card, especially once we get to the top end with the fights that we have on top there. So as always, timestamps. If you want to listen about certain fights, you can go to those timestamps and listen to the fights and my little analysis of those. So, like I say, 3-week break. How was it for you guys? It was a little bit, I'm starting to kind of get a little bit antsy now. It's been a long time. I think 2 weeks is enough, especially before a big fight like this. So hopefully in this fight week, everything will pick up. We've got a good run of cards coming as well. They're in Arizona, then they're in Atlantic City. So some big fights coming up, and just thoroughly looking forward to getting back into the swing of it again. I think we've got another 3-week break after Atlantic City, which kind of sucks. But then we've got the run into the summer, and card after card, many good fights have been made, especially in the welterweight division. Good main events, which I was going to make a video of, I've just never got the time to do it. As always, on the mission to 2,000 followers, just shy of 1,800. Hitting into April as it is now. So at the end of the year, I'd like to hit 2,000. If you can, subscribe, like, comment. I want to know, this card especially, I want to know, because I think a lot of people are going to be speaking about that main fight, and I want to hear everybody's opinion on who's going to win, how they see it. If you're betting the fight, I just want to hear your thoughts on that fight. I think a lot of people are going to come to me and want to speak about that fight. I've had a lot of people message me, especially in the last 4 or 5 days, when's your video coming out, when's this? And I've had to, usually it's a Monday before it's out, but I've I managed in the last week or so to get all the fights I wanted to see and certain things, and managed to get out. It's now very early Sunday morning. Happy Easter to you guys if you celebrate that. But I just had to get this out, and I mean, I can't go on not like this Tony Khabib fight is really just kind of taken over. Every time I'm watching other fights, I want to go back and watch more fights on Khabib and Tony. It's just so intriguing. I even went back and watched some of the videos I made when these two guys were supposed to fight over the last four years or so, and I've kind of varied my pick on different videos. This is going to be, I think, the 4th time they're trying to put this fight together. So it's interesting. It's just such an interesting fight. But we'll get to that very much so later on. And we're going to get into this fight card. Like I said, the main event I think is stacked. The main card, I think is stacked. And I think we're very solid prelims. And we have really good fights and good fighters on. Well, not too many good fighters on the UFC Fight Pass portion, but there is a guy down there who I don't think should be leading off a pay-per-view Fight Pass portion at all, really. I think they should have put him on the televised prelims here, but it is what it is. We're going to start off down in the featherweight division with the man I was just kind of referring to. So beat Magomedsharipov against Kyle Bochniak. Leading off the show, surprisingly here, for me at least. But looking forward to starting the night off, hopefully in style. We'll start with Kyle Bochniak here, who's coming off a win. He's already got a win in 2018 at UFC 220 in his hometown of Boston. Thought he fought a pretty negative fight, and really didn't do an awful lot. And in some people's eyes, I know he definitely got the hometown decision. I thought it was probably about right, personally. I thought he did enough. I think Brandon Davis could have did a little bit more, but he was the one that was initiating in the fight, really. Bochniak was kind of just hitting and moving and just didn't want to engage all that much. But he is a solid competitor, and you can't take him lightly here. I've actually seen people picking. They think Kyle Bochniak is live here. I'm not as far inclined to say that myself. I think that he's a solid fighter, but I think that's all there is to it. I think from what I've seen from Khabib Magomedsharipov, I think some of the guys, especially the last guy he beat, I think he would beat Kyle Bochniak personally. I'm a fan of Shimon Moraes. I think he's a really solid fighter, a good addition to the UFC. In that fight, he really impressed me with his composure, with his takedown ability, with his control, and it's just that Russian kind of Sambo-esque fighter that we're used to seeing kind of come out of Russia, like your Khabibs and so on, Islam Makhachev and that, where they can hold you down and they can hurt you through that. And he showed that he's got that different variance to his game, along with very explosive striking, very unpredictable striking, very long, very big for the division, and just a very good, solid fighter. And this, I think, is another showcase matchup. This is why I'm surprised they never put it in the prelims, at least, because I think you want to get more eyes on this guy because he has a talent. I think he's taught, his trainers teach him very well. Ricardo Almeida, Mark Henry, they've got a diamond here, and they need to dust him off and really try unearth him and put him out there. I think these types of matchups are great for him, and I just think he's going to boss this fight. I think he's going to use that length to fight at distance. I can see him throwing, all depending on what Bochniak wants to do, because in the past he has kind of stood his ground and threw a little bit, but in other fights he has ran. But the one thing that Zabit is really good at as well is cutting off the cage, because he is so long and so big. He can cut off the angles really well, and you have to engage with him, and he can hit you with very, very, very damaging strikes. It's just hard for me to be coming in here and like, I think Bochniak has a chance. I think that they've made this matchup. I think it's definitely a harder, an easier matchup. I was expecting, for Zabit, I was expecting a more harder fight. I think there's a little bit of an easier one for him. Not taking anything away from Kyle Bochniak, I just think that Zabit has got more tools, and I just think that I think he could put a little bit of a beating on Bochniak here. Like I say, I've got all my tape done, so I'm kind of got my DraftKings head on now, and a couple of bets that I'm going to be posting, and what I'm looking at playing for next week. But Zabit's very, very, very expensive on DraftKings, as expected, and it'll be interesting to see what his exposure is and see how popular he is. I think he will be. If you're the top guy up there, you're usually very, very popular, and maybe it's a fight to fade. It might be a fight that I try and fade, actually, but still very early on in that research and everything there. So I'm going to pick Zabit. I think he can stop him here. We've seen that he can hurt you on the feet, and we've seen that he's got submission skills as well. I think that he finds a stoppage. I don't know whereabouts he finds it. Maybe the second round. I'm going to go with strikes this one. In fact, I'm going to go strikes in the second round for Zabit Magomedsharipov there. Light heavyweight division. Devin Clark against the newcomer Mike Rodriguez. Devin Clark, I think, very limited. I don't think he's a guy that makes an awful lot of adjustments in fights. I think he's got a one-track mind to do things. I don't think if things go wrong, I think he puts himself in a lot of positions where he can be caught out, and he got caught out in that Jan Blachowicz fight. He only had one thing there, and was to try and hold him up and potentially get the takedown. Couldn't do it, and then got caught in a submission. I just think he's a limited fighter. Not to say that his opponent is all that good, He's a guy that we've seen in Dana White's Contender Show, Tuesday Night Contender Show. Big, athletic, dangerous. I think there is spots at Devin Clark. I think his game plan is going to be more what the Blachowicz fight was. Clinch and try and take this guy down. On the regionals, guys were able to do this against Mike Rodriguez. Eventually they end up getting caught though. The guy, like I say, he's a big, kind of long guy. He catches them in triangles, but there is fights where he has been taken down, and he has been for parts of the fight where he's been dominated, and he can be controlled. That's where Devin Clark, I think, is going to want to look to take this fight. Is take it to the ground and look to just lay on him and just be careful what he's doing. In that fight, I think it was Jamil Jones in the Dana White show. He was a wrestler, fairly decent one at that. He just never got the opportunity. Big flying knee, caught him square in the chin, followed up with a big strike on the ground, and ultimately that was it. Mike Rodriguez is known for those flying knees. He's got one on the regional scene which is absolutely devastating. The guy was out clean on his feet, hits the deck, clean out, big knee. Like I said, I think it was John Poppy caught with the triangle there. That was in a few days' notice. And there was another fight that I've seen. It was a very, very heavy ground and pound. So he does have that. Like I say, big, athletic dude. And very powerful. Like I said, Devin Clark, I think his game plan, get him down, control him. Think he could do that for a majority of the fight. But I can't say I'm overly confident in picking him. I think he's got a one-track mind to do that. And eventually I think Mike Rodriguez is going to stop, maybe sprawl, and keep us on their feet. And I think he's big, athletic striking. And I think he's one of those guys who's got kind of heavy, kind of thudding power. And when he hits you with something, you feel it. And I think he could catch Devin Clark with something here. So I'm going to go pick Mike Rodriguez, actually. TKO, maybe late in the second, early in the third. But I'm going to pick Mike Rodriguez. He's going to be the pick there. I'm going to pick him via TKO. Women's flyweight division. Bec Rollins against Ashley Evans-Smith. Interesting that UFC really kept Bec Rollins around because she's no more than a 500 fighter. And I think the only legit win she really has in the UFC is Lisa Ellis. And Lisa Ellis was terrible. She was not great. She wasn't even good on the Tough Show. And the sport has completely passed her by. I thought the Seohee Ham fight, she lost that one. She was unlucky in the Page fight. She got caught with that silly flying kick that Page threw up there. But she threw up there and she landed it, so all respect to her. And then she lost last time out to Jessie Rose Clark, who I think is a really good fighter. I think she's solid. And what we've seen in that fight there wasn't an awful lot between them, but you've seen the stronger fighter. Both girls got takedowns, but once the bigger girl, Jessica Rose Clark, got there, she dominated and Bec couldn't get her off. Ashley Evans-Smith has got that type of game as well, where she could do that. If she gets in the top position and it's just on top, personally, I think she will keep Bec Rollins there. I don't think Bec will be able to find her way back to her feet. On the feet, it'll be sloppy. I don't expect it to be that great, but I don't expect it really to take place all that much on the feet, because I can see this being one of those fights where Ashley Evans-Smith puts Bec against the fence and looks for takedowns, and I think she will get some. I could potentially see Bec Rollins maybe getting back to her feet on the odd occasion, but like I said before, I think if you can establish top position with her, I think you can keep her there, and I think Ashley Evans-Smith has enough there to do that. Can't say I'm confident in Ashley Evans-Smith, but really, if picking against Bec Rollins is actually, it's the kind of right thing to do at the minute, because she doesn't look like she's got enough in her really to win fights in the UFC. Now Ashley Evans-Smith really maybe doesn't have all that much either, but she does have that wrestling, and I think she is stronger and she can keep her there. But sometimes she makes silly mistakes in fight, kind of bad fight IQ as well, so can someone like Bec Rollins capitalise on that? I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to pick Ashley Evans-Smith. I think she could get a stoppage via submission potentially, but I'm going to go a decision win there for Ashley Evans-Smith. And the main fight of the UFC Fight Pass portion, Alex Caceres against Artem Lobov. this is the fight I've kind of been going a little bit iffy. I think it could be a very close split kind of decision. I think either guy could get it. Initially I was on Alex Caceres, and then I watched a couple of fights, and I just think that this could be a fight. I think if Alex was to try and use some of his grappling and maybe his jiu-jitsu, he could get the fight there, and he can maybe keep Artem there. Now Artem, like we say, I'm surprised he's still kicking around the UFC. This is probably his last hurrah. If he doesn't beat Alex Caceres, we'll not see him in the UFC again. But I've got a funny feeling this fight's going to be, I think it's going to be fun. Sloppy but fun. And I predominantly see it taking place on the feet. Like I say, if Alex Caceres doesn't want to mix it up and just wants to fight long, which he has done in the past, I think he did that in the Cole Miller fight. Fought long, fought very well that fight actually. Since then he's not looked overly that great in my opinion. I think Rolando D was one of his wins, lost to Wang Guan last time out. So he's a guy that loses to not overly established fighters, doesn't really beat new fighters all that well. I think Artem Lobov here can stick around and win rounds against Alex Caceres. Like I say, I think he can definitely win 2 rounds of this fight if it stays on there and it stays into a little bit of a brawl match, which is obviously going to be better for Artem in the fight if that happens, if they engage in a brawl, which I can see it taking place a little bit. If I'm Alex Caceres, I might try and mix up with leg kicks and just be very defensive and fight long if you're going to keep it on the feet, because Artem will like to get into the clinch, into the pocket and look to throw big shots, and he has big power. If he catches you with a big shot, you will know about it. He can put you down. We've seen that in the Tough Show. Now I know that's a Tough Show, different place altogether here. I'm going to pick Artem Lobov. I'm going to pick him via 29-28 decision, but I see it being a split. I see it being very close, but I can just see it taking place on the feet and him winning rounds, which is a bit iffy saying that, to be honest with you. It's one of my least kind of confident picks of the card. For you people that ask me about least confident and confident picks, I think Artem Lobov will be down in there, I would suspect. But the pick will be Artem Lobov via a split decision win there. So moving on to the prelims now in Fox Sports 1, starting off in the lightweight division with a fight. I was really looking forward to this fight. It was going to be Evan Dunham against Mirbek Taisimov. Taisimov just can't fight in the US, so I don't understand why they try and put fights. I know that they want to get the American audience onto him because he is a killer, but this is one of the early matchups for this card that was put out there, and for the longest time it was never officially announced by the UFC, and then on March 9th I think it was that the fight was postponed, and Olivier Aubin-Mercier has stepped up here to face Evan Dunham on short notice. He had a fight fall through himself. I can't remember who the opponent was now off the top of my head, but yeah, interesting fight. I think it's the right kind of fight for Aubin-Mercier, but at this time, is it? I think he could have had a little bit of an easier kind of fight out there with different guys. I think Evan Dunham, I don't think he's overly great, but I think he's very solid. I shouldn't say that overly great. He's workmanlike, very workmanlike, and obviously works very hard at his game and is pretty well established in all facets of the game as well. Extremely tough, extremely durable, and can go hard for the 15 minutes. Now it's Aubin-Mercier who has to step up and see if he can take out a ranked opponent. Some people have said to me that they don't think that Evan Dunham should be a ranked fighter. I disagree. He's winning fights. He's beat tough guys. I mean, the fight with Rick Glenn was a knockout, Dragon War, and the fight with Beneil Dariush, he came out very slow and then managed to pick up and managed to get a draw out of that fight. And Beneil, I think, is a top 15 guy, although his chin is failing him recently, and that's been known in the past to happen as well. But he's on his day, he can beat a lot of good fighters, can Beneil Dariush, and someone like Dunham going 15 hard minutes with him and sticking around means something. Aubin-Mercier, what I like about his game, he's, like I say, composed, really nice kicks, very hard thudding leg kicks, can go up high. I think he's a fairly decent grappler. The one thing that kind of sticks out here is just, I think Evan Dunham is just better to me when I watch the tape. I think he's just grittier, and I think once they fight, goes kind of late, he will start to come on. Where Mercy, I think he could take over the fight from there. But I do see it being very close. I mean, TriStar fighters fight really well. They fight good game plans. They fight composed fights, and they're just tough fighters to beat. End of. But I just think this might be a little bit too soon. Who knows? It might be the right time. I don't know. It's a fight I've not got the best read on, being honest with you. But I like the toughness and the grittiness that I see from Evan Dunham. I think it's hard to put this guy away. Really, it's not unless you absolutely put him down. He's still going to be there. So I'm seeing people confident in Oban Mercy. I'm not. I'm going to go Evan Dunham, but I will take him via decision. I think that's a tough fight for both guys, because I think Mercy definitely has talents and aspects of this fight that he could possibly hurt Evan Dunham a little bit. But I'm going to pick Evan Dunham. I'm going to pick him via a 29-28 decision now. Interesting fight, lightweight division. Joe Lauzon against Chris Grujic. Joe Lauzon is boom or bust, really. If he doesn't get you out in the first round, you have a huge opportunity to take him out in rounds 2 and 3. He put so much into that first round trying to take you out that he's there for the taking. And the guy's tough. The guy's really hard to put away, in all honesty. It's like the Stevie Ray fight. Came out very strong and looked like $1 million. Put a beating on Stevie Ray, then lost those last 2 rounds pretty heavy. And took some big shots in that one there as well. Chris Grujic, he's solid. I was gonna say a word there I shouldn't be saying, but it's like jobber, but he's not. He's a solid, decent fighter. But he's getting the biggest fight of his career here against a guy in Joe Lauzon, who's been in the UFC for years upon years and has racked up so much bonus money. It's not even funny. But he's getting knocked out when he's like Clay Guida knocked Joe Lauzon out in the first round as well. Chin maybe going, the durability is maybe going, which he's been known for in the past. Really, he should be probably in a 4-fight losing streak, because Marcin Held beat him. Beat Diego Sanchez. We've seen where Diego Sanchez is in his career. Lost to Evan Dunham. Beat Takanori Gomi. So, he's the people that he's beaten. I'm not like Diego's. I think if they fought years ago, I think it would have been a great fight many years ago. But he got the upper hand in that first round and took Diego out. But he had that. What can you say? Like the Michael Chiesa fight, I think he was doing decent in that one there, and then that got stopped. I think the tide was starting to turn in that fight as well, and Michael Chiesa was coming into it when the corner stopped it. Chris Grujic, he's coming off that loss to Davi Ramos, and he stuck around. I was expecting Davi to get him out of there. I can't remember what I bet him. I think it was either by submission or TKO to get him out of there, and he was plus money, and I think he went into the third round there, and he just got him out. Lost to Chas Skelly via submission, so I think there is opportunities for Joe Lauzon to, if he can get to the ground, there is opportunities. I think he can finish the fight, but I think he's only got about 5 to 6, 7 minutes of gas in him. And then if that happens, Chris Grujic is going to have the opportunities, I think, to take out Joe Lauzon late on. Never ever in his run in the UFC would I ever think that I would pick Chris Grujic here, but I am. I think he's going to do enough to survive the first round, and I think that he's just going to be stronger, tougher, more durable as the late rounds come on. So can he take out Joe Lauzon? Potentially. Like I say, Joe is very tough. I think the durability is waning a little bit, but I'm going to pick Chris Grujic. I don't know whether it's going to be a TKO. I might just go a decision. I think it could be a little bit sloppy, but I think that Chris could do a lot in the late rounds and win the fight through that. So I'm going to go Chris Grujic to win this fight here. Obviously, I think I would like Joe Lauzon to win more, but I think looking at the fight, I think Chris Grujic can just tough it out and win a decision in the end. So Grujic there. Flyweight division. Ray Borg against Brandon Moreno. Looking forward to this fight. I think that we need to see where Ray Borg is after that loss to Demetrius Johnson, where he got caught in that beautiful, I can't remember what they called it, the mighty suplex or the mighty armbar, I can't remember what it was. German suplex into the armbar transition, and he had to tap there. I thought he gave as good account of himself as he really could there, but he was completely outclassed by DJ. And, I mean, he did get a couple of takedowns on DJ. He did, I think he got a pass or two, but ultimately, like, DJ was taking him down and passing him with ease. And Ray Borg is one of the best guys in that division for doing pretty much the exact same, getting transitions, getting takedowns, and looking dominant on the ground. He looked like a kid in there next to DJ, who just kind of schooled him. On the feet, I think that Moreno is a little bit more crazy. He throws a little bit more variation than what Ray Borg does. Ray Borg's striking has come along a long way. I will say that working with Brandon Gibson out there at Team Winklejohn he's really improved that. I think he showed aspects of that in his last couple of fights. But I think Ray Borg wants to take this to the ground. I think you can dominate Brandon Moreno on the ground. We've seen Dustin Ortiz do that in the first round before getting caught. So you would have to think his game plan is to take the fight to the ground and just be careful. Just be careful with Moreno, because we've seen that he can pull things out of his backside, like that submission of Louis Smolka. Very decent grip, very decent squeeze, took him out there. Dustin Ortiz fight, lost the first round, came out big in the second, big head kick, knocked him around a little bit and then got the stoppage. In the Pettis fight, I thought he started really well, and then the class of Pettis really showed in that one there. I just think Ray Borg's too good on the ground. I think he's crafty as well with his takedowns. I think he'll find ways to get this to the ground, and find ways to establish kind of dominance down there. So I'm going to pick Ray Borg. I don't think he stops Brandon Moreno by any sense of the imagination, but I'm going to pick him via decision there. So decision win for Ray Borg. And the main fight of the prelims here in the women's strawweight division, interesting bout. Karolina Kowalkiewicz against the little bulldog Felice Herrig. Felice Herrig has looked a totally different fighter since she came back. I think she had some problems. I can't remember what it was. I think she wasn't sleeping too great, and she just wasn't feeling all that great. But since she came back, she's won fights, and she's looked very, very good in doing so. And she's beaten solid fighters as well, with Kylie Curran, which she's not solid. She's not great at all. Alexa Grasso, I have high hopes for. I think she's decent. Justin Chiesa tough, hard to get out of there. And Courtney Casey is I think she's a little bit of an awkward fighter to fight in that division, because she's quite long, she's a big girl. So yeah, I think her striking is really, really good, but I think, like I seem to be saying in a few of these fights, I think she can dominate on the ground here if she can find it there. I'm struggling to see Felice getting Karolina to the ground and dominate her there without. If she may get her there, but I don't see her keeping her there. I see Karolina, especially coming off her last loss to Claudia Gadelha, find her way back to the feet, and that's where she will establish dominance. She has far more output. She's faster, and I think she varies her strike very well. She throws some really nice leg kicks, really good combination striking as well, and she's got a little bit of pop in her hits as well. So Felice Herrig, I think what she has to do is try and get in the clinch and try and maybe push her against the fence to try and get a takedown through there. Like I say, I'm just struggling to see Felice getting her down there and keeping her down there. And I think the way that Karolina fights, she will definitely outstrike Felice, and she'll win rounds through that. So I think you can kind of sense where I'm going. I'm seeing people confident in Felice Herrig, and maybe it's just I'm not seeing what they're seeing, but I just think that the better fighter here is Karolina Kowalkiewicz. I don't think she's a bad fighter at all. I think she is one of the best strawweights in the world. She's just she's lost to the best girls, I think, in that division. So I'm going to pick Karolina. I think she just kind of beats up Felice on the feet. I just think she's the classier fighter on there. And yeah, I'm going to pick Karolina. I think I'm going to go with another decision win there. So I think I'm pretty much all decisions for the prelims here, which yeah, I think maybe a couple of finishes in there, but I think majority of them finish via decision there. Moving on to the main card, we're starting off with Raging Iaquinta against the Irish Dragon, Paul Felder. Interesting fight. Iaquinta, we know he's very outspoken at the minute. He's really just looking out for his best instincts for himself and making sure that he gets everything that he wants. I think there's a one fight deal he's got with the UFC, so he needs to win this to really not re-establish himself. Really, he fights once a year. He fought Diego Sanchez nearly a year ago and absolutely blitzed Diego with big power shots. Both guys I think are really questionable with fight IQ a little bit, especially Paul Felder. That last fight, jeez man. First of all, I'll say that Charles Oliveira I thought did really well on the feet, then got the takedown on Paul Felder, and then Paul Felder just wanted to play around on the ground with Charles Oliveira, and I was screaming at my TV. Even when I rewatched it, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, I thought he had clear advantages on the feet, and just didn't take the opportunity to use them. As the fight was going on, you could see that Charles was fading a little bit, but Paul Felder was still wanting to fight in there with Charles Oliveira, which is always dangerous because someone like the Bronx, he will catch you with so many submissions if you give him the slightest opportunity to do so. That being said, what we did see in that fight from Paul Felder is the guy has got some very heavy ground and pound, and once he has you hurt, and we've seen this in the fight with Stevie Ray as well, the guy's got huge, monstrous elbows. Like when he's got the opportunity to throw those things, you're in deep shit. And like in that fight with Stevie Ray, I'll talk about that fight with Stevie now. It kind of was initiated in the clinch a little bit. Stevie was trying to control him against the fence, and to Paul's credit, he was catching him with some nice knees, was getting under hooks, and once he got the opportunity to pull that knee straight up the middle, he caught Stevie with an absolute peach right in the chin, and once he went down, it was that heavy ground and pound like I was talking about. Absolutely destroyed Stevie Ray on the ground down there, and really quieting down that crowd. But there has been previous fights where he's just not let go, and he's not done enough. The Ross Pearson fight was a prime example of that. Just really didn't let his hands go, and even in that fight he initially initiated in some clinch battles, which I was thinking, you can clearly outstrike this guy with a heavier hit. I think you're the more well-defined striker, but he just didn't do enough in that fight and ultimately lost the fight. Now, it's hard being really confident in Iaquinta because he's only fought like twice in 3 years. He's had injuries, but when he has come back, he's looked decent. Now, I know he fought Diego Sanchez last year, and it's really the ghost of Diego Sanchez at the minute because he is just not the fighter he once was. The durability is completely gone, and you can take this guy out with one shot now, and that's what Al did. He really kind of hurt him with one shot, and then once he got the opportunity to throw that one big down the middle, or the uppercut it was, sorry, he absolutely pulverised Diego and took him out. But I am looking forward to seeing Al back because I think he brings a lot to the lightweight division. I think he's a pretty well-rounded fighter. His striking's always, especially these last few fights, has really kind of impressed me. It's came along, and he always has that wrestling to go back to there. That being said, I think I'm going to pick Iaquinta in this fight. I think he can get takedowns, and I think he can keep Paul Felder there. Now, he has to be careful because if he gets put on the bottom, Paul could pulverise him with some elbows like before. And on the feet, you'd have to think that Paul Felder is the better striker. But Al, I don't think, is no slouch. I don't think he's a slouch on the feet by any sense of the imagination. And I think that he can make it close. Like I said, I think at the start of this, Paul Felder, Charles Oliveira was doing very well in exchanges very early on in that fight with Paul Felder. That's what Al needs to do here. He needs to gain respect on he needs to gain respect on the feet first. So yeah, I'm going to pick Iaquinta. Who knows? I'm going to pick him to win via TKO. I think he can take out Paul Felder and be one of the guys to do that. So, in fact, I don't know about that. Yeah, I'm going to pick Iaquinta. I'm going to pick him via a third round TKO there. I think that he can gain top position and potentially put some elbows and some of his ground and pound on him there and win via TKO. So, Iaquinta via TKO in that one there. Lightweight division, Michael Chiesa against Anthony Pettis. Yeah, Anthony Pettis, as many will know, that I'm a big fan of the guy, and I have probably said that every time he fights on here, and a lot of time for the guy. But I think his best days are behind him. But I do think this is a winnable matchup for him personally. When you look at the styles, Pettis on the feet should have the advantage. Now, Chiesa, he's serviceable on the feet. He is quite long and gangly, so he's got that. He will have the reach advantage, but on the feet, you would have to think that Pettis has the advantage. Now, Pettis just has not been throwing some of the output that he has done in the past. I do think that he's got decent leg kicks, which is something he needs to use here, because I think that Chiesa will give him opportunities to throw those leg kicks, and he can connect with it. I think Dustin Poirier really broke Anthony Pettis in that last fight, and I think the win over Jim Miller is deceiving a little bit. I think that Jim Miller's another guy who's sliding down. I thought he looked okay in that fight. He should never have went to 145 in my opinion, and Max Holloway just totally burst through him. I think the win against Charles Oliveira was a little bit iffy. Eventually he did get the submission in that fight, but yeah, Anthony Pettis, dynamic striker, that Taekwondo background, and he has to keep it in the feet here, like the Eddie Alvarez fight. He get put against the cage. This is kind of what I can see Chiesa maybe doing, is try and impose his strength, and he's just being the bigger frame on Anthony Pettis here. I think Pettis needs to use the footwork, and from what I'm seeing on Snapchat and Instagram, he's using a lot more footwork. That's what he needs to do. Staying outside, pepper him with leg kicks, use combinations, try and find that shot that's going to hurt him. I think he can do it personally, but it's a far cry and a far reach for him to do that, in my opinion. Michael Chiesa, he's coming back after that loss to Kevin Lee in Oklahoma last year, where he got submitted. Mario Yamasaki kind of messed up a little bit, as per usual, as Mario does, and really took away the opportunity of kind of Kevin Lee to kind of really finish Michael Chiesa. He was on his way out, in my opinion, and he got kind of dominated by the guy that people were saying couldn't really do that in the ground. The one thing, like I said, you can outstrike Michael Chiesa. We've seen Benny Dariush unload with leg kicks. This is why I'm thinking Pettis has to do this here. He needs to hit him with heavy leg kicks and just use good technical striking to beat him. What Michael Chiesa did in that fight there is he kind of bull rushed Beneil Dariush a little bit and then put his will onto Dariush and ultimately found a really beautiful submission. But it was a fight, it was a round that he definitely lost the first round, came out, changed it around a little bit and went in there and got a beautiful submission. And this is where I think he has to do. He has to try and impose his will, put all his weight onto Anthony Pettis and try and find him through, try and find a submission through there. Honestly, I was picking Anthony Pettis up until a few days ago, and I'm still a little bit iffy on my pick on Michael Chiesa, but I just feel that Chiesa, this is one, I think this fight next week when I come back, and making the Arizona card. This is going to be a fight that I think I come back, I'm going to be really annoyed at myself, because my initial pick was Anthony Pettis, but it has changed to Michael Chiesa. I've got a funny feeling he's just going to find a way to get the fight to the ground. I think he's going to impose his will. I think he could find a submission on Anthony Pettis here. Kind of sucks for me to say that. I really want Anthony to win, but I just got this feeling it's going to be a little bit like the Dariush fight, where he gets outstruck early on, but eventually he finds a way to get it to the ground, and I think he finds a submission through that. So I'm going to pick Michael Chiesa. I'm going to pick him via early third round submission in that one there. A really tough pick for me. It's like I say, I'm kind of flip-flopping on that one. I was, for the longest time, Anthony Pettis, but I'm going to go with Michael Chiesa. I'm going to pick him via submission in the third. So moving on, we have, this is a fight I've literally been watching. This was the last fight I did tape on, and it's a great fight, and it's a big sleeper fight that people aren't talking about. It's one of the really good fights of this card. Renato Moicano against Calvin Kattar. I'll start off with Calvin Kattar because he's come into the UFC, and I was, like I say, I think I've seen the first two fights in his UFC. I wasn't impressed with his stuff outside the UFC. Now, he accumulated a really good record. I think he was 16-2 when he came into the UFC, so anybody that's got a record like that is pretty legit. But I think he's blossomed in the UFC personally. I thought his fight with Andre Fili, he shocked a lot of people. A lot of people didn't see that coming, and he just completely outclassed Andre Fili. Was the faster fighter, better striker, more accurate, more crisper striker, and just, he looked phenomenal. He looked really good. The Shane Burgos fight, I thought he looked awesome. Like, that was literally the last fight I watched tonight before I came and made this, and that finish is beautiful, first of all. But from the very start of that fight, he was the faster guy. He was throwing out that lead jab, and Burgos was eating it the entire fight. Couldn't stop it, and he was doubling up, tripling up in that shot as well. And really, he did get hit with a lot of counter strikes from Burgos. He attacked the body a little bit more, but ultimately the faster hand speed and the really solid shot selection from Calvin Kattar really put it on Shane Burgos, and caught, like I say, he caught him with overhand right, hit him with one uppercut that stunned him, and then came forward with an absolutely howitzer of an uppercut to take out Shane Burgos, followed up by some ground and pound, obviously. But it was just a beautiful knockout, and the guys came through. I think he's a legit contender in this division, by the way. I think even in a win or loss in this fight, he's going to be a legit contender in possibly a year's time. I think he's got a lot of growing to do. I think he's got a really serious skill set to improve his game in the UFC. And he's got a really good opponent here in Renato Moicano, who can fight in different varying styles. Like we've seen the Jeremy Stephens style fight there, where he kind of kept away from Jeremy but kind of pot shot from the outside and won that decision there against, we know what Jeremy Stephens is doing now, and he's going to be facing Jose Aldo in Singapore this coming June. So and he's looked phenomenal in his last two fights in the UFC, coming through Josh Emmett and Doho Choi. What I like from Moicano is, I just think he's a very well-rounded fighter, and I think he's really good in all facets of the game. That fight with Brian Ortega really impressed me. I thought his striking looked top-notch. I thought his counter-striking looked very, very good. Did get hit with a lot of shots himself, and that's something that could happen in this fight here with Calvin Kattar. I think that Calvin Kattar is very fast hand. He's a very good counter-striker himself, and it's something that he has to be careful of, because we've seen that Kattar can take you out with those big shots. Once he's got you hurt, he takes you out, and you will be out. That fight with T-City, I thought he was winning that fight pretty much. I thought I had him. The first round was close. I thought the second round was definitely Moicano's, but he just made a little bit of a fatal error of going for that takedown too early in that round. I think that in that third round, T-City was coming into that fight and being the more predominant fighter, and eventually found that submission. The guy is just a killer in all aspects of the game. Striking, we know this now, I know this now, striking and jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu we've known about for the longest time, but the guy's a legit striker as well. But I did think in that fight that Brian Ortega, Moicano, frustrated Ortega in that fight, and really flustered and frustrated Ortega, and that's something that I think he has to do here. Use leg kicks, he thought he did that well in the Ortega fight, but I also have to think he has to mix in takedowns like he did in the Ortega fight. I think the second round he took him down with 10-15 seconds left and won the round through that, in my opinion. That's why I said he has to really mix it up. I think that Kattar will be the better striker, but I don't think Moicano's a slouch on the feet whatsoever, and I thought he fought really... I think his 2 fights previous he fought very well striking wise, and it's something he has to use here. Really tempted to bet Renato Moicano. He's an underdog. I think he's plus 135 or plus 140 over here in the UK. I'm going to leave it another couple of days and see if it rises and see how I feel personally on the on that. It might be a pass as well. It's a close fight. Thinking about it now, I'm going to pass betting wise, but if the number continues to go up, it might be something I'll take a little stab at, not too much. I am going to pick Renato Moicano. I'm going to pick him via a very close decision. I think it's a very close fight. It's a hard fight to pick. Initially, my pick was Moicano, and I'm sticking with it, even though I was super impressed with Calvin Kattar in his last couple of performances in the UFC. I think it's a 50-50 fight. I think it's a very close fight, and both guys are legit people in that division, and will progress further up the top 10 than where they are now. So Moicano via maybe a split decision in that one there. Co-main event of the night, the rematch. Thug Rose Namajunas, the champion, faces off against the former champion who she conquered in the last fight, Joanna Jedrzejczyk. That was a rude awakening, I think, for Joanna Jedrzejczyk. Like a really devastating loss. She got bossed in that fight from the get-go. She got hit with a big shot. She could not recover from it, and she pretty much quit in that fight. She submitted to strikes. She didn't want to take any more, and that was interesting to me. I didn't think she had that in her. I thought she would have fought through that kind of hard time there in that fight and survived, but Rose Namajunas never gave her any time, to be fair. Once she hit her with that second time and knocked her down for the second time, she was all over her, and Joanna thought it was just the right choice to submit to strikes, pretty much. She was going to get taken out eventually anyway, to be fair. And I was shocked. I was legitimately shocked. I think Rose Namajunas is a good fighter. I didn't think she was a world champion. I thought that Joanna would eventually find a rhythm and just outclass her over the 5 rounds. And I still think, in my opinion, and I'll maybe take some shit for this, I still think Joanna is the better fighter. I think overall, probably not the better striker when it comes to everything mixed together, because I think Rose is, obviously, she's got some power, she's got some technique, she's got some variety, she's also got submission skills, and I think she's got a little bit of a grappling. When it comes to a certain skill set of striking, I think that Joanna is definitely the better striker. And I think if she survives early here and she gets into a rhythm, she will start to outclass Rose Namajunas, in my opinion. So I think that what Rose needs to do is come out the blocks very, very sharp, very, very quick, and look to put her out again. And she's did it once, she will look to do it again without a shadow of a doubt. But for me, the one thing that I haven't been liking here in the last 2 weeks from Joanna, and she's sounded a little bit, it's been a little bit annoying here. It's all about the weight cut from that last fight, and people are using that. She made the weight, it might have been a rough. Brian Ortega, like I mentioned in that fight with Moicano, he came in, I think it was 2 minutes to weigh in, looked like dog shit, looked horrible. Still won the fight though, and still looked okay in the fight. Joanna, she can't be blaming that last fight on the weight cut. I know it was rough. We've seen the video. It's out there. You can go and see it. It was rough watching that. But she's focusing a lot on the weight cut instead of the opponent, someone who has beat her before and blitzed through her. So it's interesting. So I'm just interested to see what Rose Namajunas' game plan is. It's to come out and be super aggressive. I mean, Joanna was trying to wind her up that entire fight week and it didn't work. She never got into Rose's head, which surprised me, because I think that you can get in Rose's head, or you could get in Rose's head beforehand. So what I think Joanna needs to do is she needs to fight long, she needs to establish a jab, and she needs to use leg kicks. Kind of like what Tecia Torres did. Try and be the quicker fighter. I think she is the quicker striker, but she needs to establish that very, very quickly. And I think if we get through the first round or two, I think Joanna will start to put it on her. I really do. I think, like we've seen in the fights with Gadelha, to be fair, Gadelha kind of faded a little bit. She comes through in those late rounds and looks very dominant, and I'm expecting her to go back to being like that. It's tough though, because Rose is in her head. She's beat her before. That's got to be sitting there on the shoulder of Joanna Jedrzejczyk, and she's like, this girl's beat me. She could do it again. It's just interesting to me that the mindset thing with this fight. I think if she's got the head on right, I think she can thoroughly beat Rose Namajunas, in my opinion. I don't know whether I'm showing a little bit of disrespect to Rose by saying that, but I still think that Joanna is the better overall, not the better overall fighter. I just think she's the better fighter. I think she's the better fighter. Like I said before, maybe not in all aspects, but I just think she's got a little bit more to her than what Rose has. Could be wrong there, but that's just kind of how I'm seeing things a little bit. I'm going to pick Joanna Jedrzejczyk. I'm going to pick her to survive early. It might be a little bit hairy at moments, and I think our defense certainly has to be better than what it was before. Obviously, the weight thing could be a big thing to play, and I know I've talked about it. Like, if Joanna looks kind of healthy-ish, she never really does, but if I think she's got that Tyler Minton, I think it is now, doing a weight cut with her, who does it. I think he does it with Khabib and that, and he looked great last time out. I just think that if she makes the weight comfortably, looks decent, confident, which I think she always will be, and is mentally all there and can find a rhythm early, I think she outclasses Rose Namajunas, in my opinion. So I'm going to pick Rose Namajunas to lose her belt here after winning it the last time. I'm going to pick Joanna Jedrzejczyk. Can she stop her? I think she can. I think she could stop her with output and volume. More than likely, it's hard. I'm going to pick her via decision, actually. Joanna Jedrzejczyk, I think she might lose a round, she might lose 2 rounds, but I think once she establishes a rhythm, hopefully she does, she wins the fight through there and she gets her belt back. Really interested to see the rematch, because the first one totally blew my socks off. Did not see that coming one iota. And she put a beating on Joanna Jedrzejczyk, and it's the mindset thing with this fight, where both girls at and where they're going to go in this fight. So I'm going to pick Joanna. I'm going to pick her via decision, and yeah, so that's the co-main event out the road, and we are now on to the main event, which is just the thought of the fight is unbelievable. I'm just going to take a slip of water here, guys. So, Tony Ferguson, the interim UFC champion, lightweight champion, faces off against Khabib Nurmagomedov, the undefeated Khabib Nurmagomedov, who is unbelievable to watch. His fights are unbelievable to watch. Just some of his techniques, his strength, his power, and just an unbelievable thing here. Like I say, I've made many notes for this, on this fight, and just a couple of things that I've noted and some of my thoughts on it, so bear with me with it while I just kind of have a look at my phone and see what I'm looking at here. So we'll start off with the champion here, Tony Ferguson, one of the most established guys. He came out at the Tough Show, looked great, won the belt, but there is aspects of his game that you can attack, in my opinion. We'll start off with some of the positives with Tony's game. I think he is, in that lightweight division, I think he's the fighter with the most tools in the division by far. When you look at it, I think he's got crazy. He's introvert. He does things a little bit different. He does things his way. Decent striking. He's long in his range as well, which is interesting. Well, not interesting, but it's there. It's established. And he can snap out that jab. He has really good, decent striking. I think his defense is a little bit... I think he can be hit. But I think predominantly he's a really good striker, and he's got some really he's got like one of those low chopping leg kicks right above the ankle, which can hurt. We've seen that in a lot of his fights coming up through this. I think it's a 10-fight win streak that he's had there in the UFC. And like I say, I think I actually think he's a decent wrestler. We just don't see it all that often. I think his all-around game is very, very solid, but there is so many aspects that I think that Khabib can exploit in this fight, in my opinion. Gas tank. I think we have to talk about the gas tank of Tony Ferguson. It's elite. I think it's one of those gas tanks that just won't stop, won't fail. I think he will keep coming forward. He will keep going. He doesn't stop. I think he trains out there in Big Bear in California, so high elevation there. It just seems when you look at him, we've seen him, I think, in elevation against RDA fight. 5 rounds, looked very, very good. Looked like he could go more rounds on top of that, and that was at a very, very high elevation, if I remember right. It usually is when they go to Mexico, but really impressive gas tank. The guy never loses confidence in himself. One of the big things that I noticed, even when he is struggling a little bit, I think the confidence never wanes. He never doesn't believe in himself, and that's a big tool to have in your arsenal. We've seen him in fights. Michael Johnson was putting on him a little bit. Lando Venata especially was putting on. Now that was a tough fight for him to take because it was an unknown kind of guy coming in short notice, and Lando's funky himself, and he's got some power and he's got some powerful strikes along with it. So that was a tough fight there, but there was openings in that fight. Now I'm not saying that Khabib's the kind of funky striker that's going to expose that, but I think that one of the things that shines to me in Tony Ferguson is he totally believes in himself. He believes in his skill set, and his confidence never wanes, and that's a huge thing for a champion to have. If you've got all that, and you know you've got the tools on top of that to really establish yourself as one of the best fighters there is pretty much in the world. That's something I actually really love about Tony Ferguson. I'm not his biggest fan, I never have been. I'm not really a big fan of either of these guys, but if you're not a fan of these guys fights and fighting kind of styles, then something's up. I just think they're both really, really, with the games that they have, they're both really, really amazing with it. Like I say, not a fan of either guy. I think Tony's a little bit of a douche sometimes. I don't think he's a good trash talker. I actually listened to the press conference, the conference call, the other day there, and Khabib was kind of outbeating him. If we're going on points there, I think he was 10-9 over a couple of rounds there for Khabib. But that doesn't really affect the fight too much. But like I said, takes beatings, but still comes forward. Confidence never wanes, and that's something that could be vitally important in this fight here. Never ever backs up. This is one of the things I've been thinking about. I don't know whether I put it out on Twitter. Who's the first guy who's going to back up here? I've got who I think, and I'll maybe say that later on in this fight when I kind of maybe go through Khabib's points. But he doesn't ever back up all that much, if at all. It's hard to see. I've watched pretty much all his fights to the Ultimate Fighter, to the UFC. I think I maybe missed out the Aaron, I forget his name now. I think I watched the Ramsey and the Gem fight. Aaron, oh, that's going to annoy me. I forgot now. But he does not back up, and he's just super, super aggressive. And that's what I think he has to keep, that aggression here, being honest with you. Because I think if he does back up and he's anywhere near the fence, I think that Khabib can go in with a double leg and grasp those legs and look to try and take him down from there. And once Khabib doesn't, even though he might not get that, he will look for single legs. He will try and reap the legs out. But like I said, Tony Ferguson he's got wrestling there. I think he was a college champion, and that's something he has to fall back on. Now he has been taken down many times, which I will go into a little bit later, and by opponents far less advanced than what Khabib is in wrestling and grappling and control and pressure and so on. Like I say, I think he's a very adaptable fighter. I think that he can fight and adapt to what his opponent brings to him very, very well. I think you see that he doesn't. He adjusts very well to his fighter to his opponents. We've seen that in the Renato fight. Once he realised that Renato was leaving stuff out there, he realised that he had to try and get that choke, he had to try and get the takedown. It kind of happened in the Barboza fight as well, where he realised that he had an advantage on the ground. If he could just get that grip and that clasp on him, that he could finish Barboza. So I think he's a very adaptable fighter. But like, the one thing that kind of shines out, and I should have said at the start of the fight, both these guys are fighters. They've never faced these kind of fighters, either guy. So it's going to be really interesting. Both guys are going to have to adapt to each other's style here and see which one predominantly comes out the winner. The one thing that, obviously, me talking about him getting taken down now, he's got taken down by Justin Edwards, who's not a great fighter, never really was. Abel Trujillo took him down. Lando, I think, taking him down. I don't know, did I say Abel Trujillo there? I think maybe did. Kevin Lee took him down, mounted him. And I'm sure I've got other ones there. Josh Thompson, I think, took him down as well. Danny Castillo. The Danny Castillo fight, to me, opened my eyes a lot on how this fight could go, regarding control and just aspects of the grappling that I think we will see in this fight, which could work in Khabib's favour. And that's something that he needs to be careful with. But he is extremely, extremely good on his back. Never really stops. It's forever moving. It's forever throwing strikes, looking to scramble, and looking to manoeuvre himself where he can get his way back to his feet. Like I say, he's funky. He rolls into things. He rolls out of things. He's just a really funky dude. But if he is on putting his back, can he get that offense off? Like he has done in previous opponents, like cutting them up from the bottom. I'm not entirely sure myself, but he is extremely, extremely good. He's one of those Eddie Bravo guys, so he's very creative on the ground as well. So something you have to keep an eye on. Like I say, looks for omoplatas and looks to. This is why I'm seeing people saying, "Oh, but Kevin Lee got full mount," and he did. But I think that was a little bit due to the fact that Tony was looking for submissions, omoplatas, and was opening positions where Kevin Lee could advance into better positions, i.e. the full mount. But he did find his way to get out of those situations very, very quickly. But once again, Kevin Lee got full mount, and I definitely think Khabib Nurmagomedov is better than Kevin Lee when it comes to wrestling, grappling, control, pressure. So yeah, he will look for submissions, he will look for omoplatas, and he will look for triangles to try and get himself off his back and advance position and get himself back on the feet, which I think he will ultimately be looking to do in this fight anyway. Will strike with elbows. He's got all those. He will strike with anything that he's got. So the knees, the elbows, kind of the 8 points that they always say. He will strike with anything that he's got. The big thing I think that he has to do is, I think he has to get respect early in this fight. If he doesn't get the respect early in the fight, I think it could struggle a little bit. So I think he needs to really establish himself on the feet. We've seen in the Michael Johnson fight, and people say, "Oh, he hurt Khabib." That was 90 seconds into that fight. Michael Johnson had 90 seconds of that fight where Khabib had 13 minutes or so, 12, 13 minutes of complete and utter domination and totally manhandled a ranked UFC fighter with ease. And that was him being out for a long time as well. So respect early, I think, is a big thing for Tony. I think some of his negatives, really, I think that he welcomes the takedown. And I think I've watched an interview where he said he will welcome the takedown of Khabib Nurmagomedov. And I'm like, I know he's a funky dude and he says some crazy shit sometimes, but ultimately you cannot be on the ground with this guy for too long. And if he controls you, you can't be accepting of that. You need to get back to the feet, which I think he has a definitive, well, not a definitive advantage. I think he has an advantage there, though. So yeah, I think that is one of the things. I think it's a big recipe for disaster if he does accept and he does welcome the takedown. It makes no sense to me when I heard that. I'm just like, you're talking some shit there, Tony, if you're going to accept and you're going to welcome Khabib to take you down. Maybe he is, and maybe he just wants to try out submissions and he thinks he can submit him off his back. I think it's crazy, but he doesn't. That's his mindset, and he thinks he knows his own skill set. He knows what he can do. So maybe I'm sounding kind of crazy by questioning a world champion, and which I am a little bit, because I'm just a guy that sits and watches the fights and I evaluate some different things. But still, the one thing that I noticed through a lot of his fights, he can lose rounds like easily. The Lando Renato fight, now, like I said before, I know that was short notice and it was a little bit awkward for him as well. He can lose rounds. He lost that first round to Lando. Abel Trujillo, I think, took a round off him. RDA definitely took 2 rounds off him, in my opinion. I think that Tony won rounds 1, 3 and 5 fairly convincing. I thought it was as clear a 48-47 fight as you could see. But you can take rounds off this guy. I think I just think you can take rounds off him. Personally, I think that he is open to losing rounds. Kevin Lee got some off him. Maybe second round was close. Maybe lean more towards Tony. But you can win rounds against this guy. And I just think that's a recipe for disaster with a guy who doesn't lose many rounds in Khabib Nurmagomedov. So, yeah, can be held down. Like I said, I already went on about accepting the takedown. He can be held down. Watch the Danny Castillo fight. 3rd round. Both guys are kind of, well, not gassed. Tony wasn't. Danny Castillo definitely was. He was gassed halfway through the second there. But he chained his grappling together to keep a hold of Tony Ferguson late on in that round. And I thought, personally, I scored it for Danny Castillo, in my opinion, in that fight. And if you just go back and watch that fight, there is definitely aspects there where he can be held down and you can chain grappling together. And the best guy in the UFC, I think the best guy we've ever seen with that, is Khabib. So that's an aspect there I think is a big tick in Khabib's side. And he's been taken down by less grapplers than what Khabib is. I've already stated them off there. Justin Edwards, not that it was overly that long. Abel Trujillo, Kevin Lee, Barboza took him down 2 times. Renato took him down. So yeah, less grapplers are holding him down and taking him down, and that kind of leans towards more Khabib in my opinion. And potentially, I think if he gives up the full mount in this one, I think he could be in deep doo-doo. I think he could be in a really bad situation. So if Kevin Lee can get it, I think that Khabib can definitely get it. I think if Khabib gets it, he will control him there. He will try and crucifix, pinpoint the arm. One of the things that Khabib does really well is he gets body parts and he just puts them there and he keeps them there. And like the Michael Johnson fight, I think right before the Kimura, he puts his right arm inside his left leg and keeps him there while he's working on the Kimura. It's just beautiful. I think he did that with Michael Johnson. I think the first round where he reaps, it'd be the right arm, he's holding it and he keeps pulling it and just absolutely wailing him with left hands to the head there. So yeah, we'll talk about Khabib now. If I'm rambling on, I know it's like 1 hour, like nearly 70 minutes into this, but I'm really enjoying talking about this fight, and I hope you enjoy me talking about it as well. So Khabib, top control king, is what I put down here as my top thing. His top control and his pressure is unbelievable, and it's just something that it blows me away when I watch it. And you can go back from when he first came into UFC, when he was throwing Abel Trujillo around. Thiago Tavares is another one that he kind of starts fairly quick there. Pat Healy, who was supposed to be a good grappler, completely dominated him in every aspect. But his top control is legendary, and just his pressure is legendary. I think he will pass easily on Tony. I think Tony will give him opportunities. Like I said, he will probably be on his back, on his side, maybe it's side control. Tony will move, he will move position. So I think he can easily pass Tony. And I think he could wear Tony out through that. He has to work really hard to go off his back, get away from side control, get away from the crucifix. So he's always going to be working, in my opinion. And you're going to have all that appendage on top of you with Khabib there. So yeah, so any scramble opportunity, I think Khabib will pass easily and could rack up points there very, very easily, personally. He goes hard in any situation. The one thing people say, Khabib's not a good striker. I think Khabib's a very serviceable striker. I think he's got in that fight with Michael Johnson, you see him land a beautiful uppercut in that third round before he takes him down. He pressures very hard on the feet, backs you up. He's another guy that doesn't take too many back steps. He's did it a little bit more than what Tony has, but one of the big things that interests me in this fight here is who will take the back step first. Because in that fight with Barboza, he was like a Terminator. Did not take a back step at all. Completely isolated Barboza, cut him off at every opportunity, and just absolutely, he beat the living piss out of him for 15 minutes. And much props to Tedson Barboza in that fight, because he never stopped, he never quit. But halfway through that first round, you could see his eyes kind of widen, thinking, I can't do anything with this guy, I can't get him off me, and I'm in trouble here. And it showed in that fight. But yeah, I think he can dictate a lot of the areas of the fight and do it from there. I think he just goes hard in any situation, as can Tony in some as well. One of the big things, he outstrikes his opponent, and on the feet as well. He does land some really decent strikes, like I stated before in the Michael Johnson fight. He did it in the Horcher fight. I think he did it in the Thiago Tavares fight as well. That's going back a long way, but he can. I think he keeps a really good distance with his strikes. I think he's quite long. Now that's going to be hard against a guy who's as long as Tony is. So yeah. Pressure. The guy is just really hard to. The guy's the pressure king, I think. I just think that you cannot keep this guy off you once he has you backed up, once he has you on the ropes, and once he has an advantageous position. I think he's always coming forward and he's looking to back you up. Like I said, one of the big things I've been thinking about is who's going to take that backward step first. I personally think Tony's going to take the backward step first, and I'd be surprised. It's surprising to me to even say that, but I think that Khabib's going to push him back. And like I said earlier on, I think Tony's going to try and push himself forward. I just don't think he's going to be able to do it with Khabib, with the fear of getting taken down, or maybe not getting the fear of getting taken down. But I just think he will take the backward step first. But we'll see. It's not really the biggest deal. Much stronger. I think he's much stronger, and he will hold Tony down in situations. If Danny, like I said, I know the Danny Castillo fight is probably not a fight I should really be referencing, but it's there, and you can see that he's been held down by a guy in the third round who is clearly gassed. So Khabib could definitely get him there. And like I said before, traps body parts really well. You can go through all his fights, and he traps, puts you in the crucifix. He'll trap your hand, he'll trap your leg, like he did in the Michael Johnson fight. That Michael Johnson fight, there's so many aspects you should go and look at there. Negatives, the only thing that really stands out to me is the 5-round thing. People are saying, oh, he's going to gas after 3 rounds, and he's going to do this after 3 rounds, and he could gas without a shadow of a doubt. We've never seen him in 5 rounds, and we've seen Tony go hard for 5 rounds. But for me, as a betting guy, I would never ever bet against Khabib Nurmagomedov not being able to go hard for 5 rounds. I just don't see it. I've seen it for 15 minutes. I can see it going for that 25 minutes if it has to. And I see, I just see him going hard. I don't see him taking breaks. Just watching him, even in between rounds, he's talking and he's ready to go. And it's just, I just don't think it's in his nature to really to stop once he's going. So ultimately, I'm down to my prediction of the fight, and my pick is going to be Khabib Nurmagomedov. And I actually think he stopped Tony Ferguson. I think that he will break Tony, which I think some people might laugh at me when I say that, but it is what it is. It's just how I feel and how I see the fight going. But I was going to bet Khabib, and then I thought, I just need to sit back and watch this fight because it's too good a fight to lay money on. Now I do think the odds are a little bit off actually. I think they're a little bit high. Like I don't know what Tony's at, but I've seen him as plus 210, I think it is. That's crazy. Him being a champion as well. Ultimately, I'm going to pick Khabib by the simple reason I think he wins rounds. Tony gives up rounds. You've seen it. You can go back and see that. If you go back and watch the amount of fights that I have, you will see Tony lose rounds. You see very little of Khabib losing rounds. He maybe lost to Gleison Tebow around in that one there. But the guy doesn't lose rounds, and he's just dominant. And it's like I say, I'm not a fan of either guy, but I love watching both guys fight. Just for the simple reason I think they put on exciting fights, very kind of different, varying fights, but they're extremely exciting. I'm just hoping this fight gets there first of all, because we've had it right up to weigh-in days where stuff has happened and the fight's got stopped and not taking place. But my pick's going to be Khabib Nurmagomedov. That's my pick, guys. You tell me your picks. Is it Tony? Is it Khabib? Leave your comments, your fight analysis down there. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Longest ever video I did for a fight prediction, but I think it's worthy of this main event personally. It's such an amazing main event, and it's going to be a really solid card. If you've stayed with me for the 1 hour 15 that I've been on here, I really appreciate you're as hardcore as they come, because yeah, I don't think I like sitting around and watching guys' predictions. A lot of guys do it. Go out and support those guys as well. But yeah, it's a long time to be listening to me ramble on about it. But I appreciate it, and some of you really like it. So thank you very much. I'll be back next week for UFC in Glendale, Arizona. Dustin Poirier against Justin Gaethje. That fight card is another amazing card. So looking forward to getting that back with you next week. When UFC 223 comes around this weekend, just enjoy it, because I think those main fights are going to be very special. So until then, thank you for watching, take care and enjoy the fights.